Hey guys, it's Kingdom Orange 2 here, and welcome back to my channel. Since Halloween is coming just around the corner, I thought for today it would be fun to take a look back at the doll line Once Upon a Zombie. Wanting to capitalize off the success of Monster High at the time, the toy company WowWee created a line of zombie princess dolls whose storyline centered around beloved iconic fairy tale characters suddenly transforming into zombies as their kingdoms began decaying into wastelands. Now for today's video, I thought I would delve into the history of the doll line, talk about its many forms of media, and give my opinions about what I liked about Once Upon a Zombie, but why I think it ultimately failed. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Artwork. The very first thing I wanted to touch on in this video was the artwork. The Once Upon a Zombie artwork is based off the character designs from the Toon Studios of Beverly Hills. Now, I'm still not exactly sure who or what the Toon Studios of Beverly Hills is, but from the looks of their website, they seem to be a company that sells various cheap products with pictures of fairy tale characters on them. One thing I noticed straight off the bat was their blatant ripoff of Disney's designs. It's actually a bit hard to tell because of the constant redesigns I saw of the characters, but they seem to be getting closer and closer to what the Disney characters look like. Like for example, you can see as the Toon Studios Cinderella design starts out kind of original, then changes so often that in the end it looks just like Disney's. They also feature characters that are not part of any fairy tale folklore except for Disney. Like a Pocahontas who looks to be very whitewashed. And just like its license company, Once Upon a Zombie would constantly change the designs of the princesses. Now I would have liked to shown you guys a progression of each of the characters' appearances, but their looks were changed so often and inconsistently as a group, I couldn't really track who changed what and when. The only pattern I did notice was that the girls all started out with black eyes, and they were colored in, probably to resemble the glass eyes on the dolls. But to me, I don't really understand why Once Upon a Zombie would keep doing this. I understand why Toon Studio of Beverly Hills consistently does this, because they are trying to see how far they can make their designs look similar to Disney's, but I don't get why Once Upon a Zombie would change theirs as well. It's not like they were selling products over and over again to match the updated designs. Also, I can't comprehend how Toon Studios of Beverly Hills is able to get away with selling merchandise so similar to Disney's designs without getting sued. So if anybody can tell me more about this, feel free to share with me down below in the comments. Dolls. The first round of dolls debuted at Toy Fair 2013. Each doll stood around 11 inches tall, was articulated, and came with stands and a hairbrush. Now I actually owned all 6 of them, and I did like the fact that not only did they have stands, but their hands were molded to resemble a zombie's grip. But I do remember that the quality of the hair was quite poor, and the material of the dolls' dresses was crunchy and cheap. The dolls' bodies also weren't super sturdy, and I would often struggle with placing them onto their stands. Now just as Once Upon a Zombie's artwork was all over the place, so was the release of their future dolls. The next time the dolls were featured was at Toy Fair 2014. According to this video, WowWee planned on releasing 3 new characters, Pocahontas, Alice in Wonderland, and Tinkerbell, as well as a deluxe set of each doll which came with a charm bracelet and a second outfit, accessory packs, and a deluxe 6-pack. A year later at Nuremberg Toy Fair, the dolls appeared again. These dolls were featured in new boxes, and WowWee also intended on creating more merchandise for the line, such as Cinderella's carriage and a vanity for Rapunzel. However, the only dolls ever released to market after the first line were all of the characters in their new boxes, with a newly designed Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, as well as the addition of Alice to the lineup. But after that, the line was seemingly cancelled. I couldn't click on the link to the article, but on the Once Upon a Zombie wiki, it says that WowWee canceled the doll line because the doll line was astray from the brand's core values and they decided to drop it. Now, while I'm not quite entirely sure what they mean by that, this isn't the end of the story. Even up until recently, Once Upon a Zombie has been active on its Facebook page, reposting old photos and wishing people happy holidays. A couple of things I found interesting was that over the years, Once Upon a Zombie has sold prototypes of unreleased dolls on eBay. Not only are these prototypes quite hideous, but I'm surprised they sold for so cheap, as Once Upon a Zombie only listed them for $4.99. Another thing I noticed was that in 2015, they planned on creating a zombie Queen of Hearts doll, but their plans in releasing it fell through. Nowadays, the Once Upon a Zombie Facebook page is full of links to its Etsy shop, which sells designs from Toon Studio of Beverly Hills on various items such as t-shirts, bags, and notebooks. And again, I'm still not exactly sure how the license works, especially since even if Toon Studios of Beverly Hills own the artwork for Once Upon a Zombie, I don't understand how they are able to sell t-shirts with pictures of the dolls on them. I even thought about contacting them on Etsy, but I didn't think they would answer any of my questions. Cartoon. Just like any other doll company, Once Upon a Zombie planned on creating webisodes to coincide with their toys. A trailer for the cartoon was released on their official YouTube channel in 2014, however, they never actually uploaded any webisodes. That is, until 3 years later, when a user known as Monster Flips USA uploaded 3 webisodes onto YouTube, stating in the description that he was responsible for managing all aspects of the animation production and that Once Upon a Zombie was his client. Now, from the 3 webisodes that were created, I can tell a couple of things. First and foremost, the animation is horrible. While I have to give this web designer props for animating this all by himself, it still looks like an early 2000s video game. The character models are actually pretty nice though, but the backgrounds and character movement is pretty bad. Also, I'm not exactly sure why a company would outsource the animation to a singular person and not an animation company. I know it's probably to save thousands of dollars, but that seems like a ridiculous amount of work for one person to do by themselves. I do also quickly want to touch on the storyline. The idea of fairy tale characters becoming zombies is super interesting, but to me, I don't know if the plot has longevity. The way in which the girls become zombies was a bit weird, but I think overall the storyline is better suited for books or a movie. Books. The one place I think Once Upon a Zombie was actually most successful was in their books. The first book, titled Once Upon a Zombie, Book 1, The Color of Fear, was released in 2015. Now, it's been a while since I've read the novel, but I thought I would recap some of the plot as well as tell you what I remember liking about it. The first book follows a 14-year-old girl named Caitlin Fletcher who just moved to London. One night, she follows a boy named Jack into a graveyard and ends up falling down a rabbit hole which lands in Wonderland. It is here she meets 4 princesses who tell her that something is going awry in the fairy tale world, causing the lands to decay and turning everyone into zombies. They also believe that the Queen of Hearts is behind all of this, as well as a mysterious man known as the Enchanter. So, from what I can remember when I read this book, I did really enjoy it. It was definitely more suited for a teenage audience, especially in its use of language. Also, the title of the book served as a nod to how everyone became zombies, as green the color of will has been lost, while red the color of fear has taken over the land. And 3 years later, they released a sequel known as Book 2, The Lord of the Curtain in 2018. I never got around to reading this one, so I won't be able to summarize it, but what I do know for sure is that the book series was originally planned to be a trilogy. However, I would assume that at this point, the 3rd book has been cancelled. I do find it impressive that the first book was popular enough to spawn a sequel 3 years after the doll line was discontinued, but I wonder if at the end of the day, the 2nd book had poor sales and that's why book 3 was never released. At the end of the day, it's a bit difficult to pinpoint exactly why Once Upon a Zombie was a failure. As we learned from many other doll lines such as Mermaid High, being a smaller toy company can be very difficult to withstand, and I think in all honesty, WowWee did not have the funds to compete with these bigger toy companies. And another lesson that the failure of Once Upon a Zombie teaches us is that when these toy companies try to copy off each other's ideas, it never works out in the end. People want original concepts and not cheap knockoffs. So with that being said, tell me guys down below what your opinions of Once Upon a Zombie are and why you think this doll line didn't succeed. As always, feel free to check out my Instagram and TikTok pages. It's the same username for both and I love connecting and meeting with new people. If you like this video today and want to see more content in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching today and I will see you soon. Bye!